Welcome to The Explainer, focused learners. Today we're cracking open a truly fascinating text called The Perfection of Ethics. Now, I know what you might be thinking. When most of us hear the word ethics, we kind of groan a little bit inwardly, right? We immediately picture dusty rule books, strict compliance, maybe some finger wagging. But the ancient text we're exploring today, it completely shatters that view. It offers this profound reframing of ethics, actually taking it right out of the courtroom and placing it directly into the beating heart of human empathy.
Okay, let's dive into this. Traditionally, conventional ethics, what we're all used to, is dominated by rules, restrictions, legalism, and this huge laundry list of thou shalt nots. It's mostly about what you shouldn't do. But the text's vision, which is often called Bodhisattva ethics, completely flips the script on this. It's all about active compassion, structural empathy, and building dynamic positive habits. You see, it's not about ticking boxes on some moral checklist. It's about transforming your fundamental relationship with the world around you. Section 1. The shape of compassion. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why that compassion is so desperately needed. Because the primary argument here is that ethics isn't some cosmic legal document. It's simply the shape that boundless empathy takes out in the real world. It's what love looks like when it rolls up its sleeves and gets to work. And the text doesn't start with abstract theory either. It grounds its lofty philosophy in these deeply visceral, recognizable metaphors. It tells us that, like a potter's clay pot, or morning dew on grass, or sea foam on the ocean, the human body is fragile. It's impermanent. We are vulnerable, We experience pain, sickness, fear, and it's precisely because of the shared, undeniable human fragility that a structured system of compassion, what this text calls ethics, is not just a nice, warm and fuzzy idea, but an absolute necessity for our survival.
So to address this fragility, the text introduces its central framework, the Threefold Vow. Now notice right away that it's not described as a strict dogma. Instead, it's a dynamic framework of ethics made up of three concentric circles of responsibility: restraining oneself, gathering goodness, and serving others. It's really a practical, constantly expanding blueprint for how to live a truly meaningful life.
Let's move to the next step and see how this builds visually. Imagine dropping a stone into a still pond. The framework starts at the absolute center with Step 1, restraining oneself. This is your inner circle. Then, the ripple naturally expands outward to Step 2, gathering goodness, which is the middle circle. And finally, it reaches the farthest shore with Step 3, serving others, the outer circle. The catch here is you can't just jump straight to the outer edge. You really have to build this literal and metaphorical outward expansion of responsibility, and it absolutely has to start from within. Circle 1, restraining oneself. So, this is the most intimate circle of responsibility. The idea is, before we can go out and save the world, we absolutely must learn to manage the terrain of our own mind and body. The source breaks this inner restraint down into three key areas. First, the body, protecting life and ensuring physical safety. Simply put, we don't cause physical harm. Second, speech, speaking the truth and actively avoiding words that cause division or hatred. And third, the mind, cultivating a clear, unclouded view that's free from overwhelming greed or anger. Now, it is crucial to understand that these aren't just legalistic restrictions. They are the essential first step of quieting our own internal chaos. Because think about it, if our own lives are a total storm of harmful actions and angry words, we literally don't have the bandwidth or the room to help anyone else. Which brings us right back to our core theme. Ethics is simply the shape that compassion takes when it becomes a reflex. By practicing that inner restraint, by consciously choosing not to harm, not to lie, not to rage, we're actually training our nervous system. We're taking the raw emotion of empathy and turning it into a deeply ingrained habit, a reflex that eventually just happens entirely naturally. Circle 2, gathering goodness. Okay, so once we've quieted that internal storm, we can step outward into active cultivation. This middle circle is all about actively building your moral muscle. The text explicitly tells us we must seek knowledge from wise guides, because, let's face it, we can't figure it all out alone. We must practice fearless generosity, and that can be giving resources, giving time, or even simply giving our attention. We also have to cultivate unbreakable patience, which is really just the ability to endure the inevitable frictions of life without snapping. And crucially, we must abandon what the text beautifully calls the mountain of pride. You see, breaking down the ego is an absolute prerequisite here. It's how we prepare ourselves for the wider, much more difficult action that's required in the final circle. Circle 3, serving others. So the crucial point is that this brings us to the grand finale of the framework. This is where the personal virtue you built in Circle 2 radiates out into massive, real-world social action. It's captured perfectly in this quote right here. I will make all beings turn away from their fragile bodies and seek the solid, true body of enlightenment. The ultimate motivation here, the Bodhisattva ideal, isn't just about handing out band-aids. No, it's a radical commitment to alleviate the fundamental suffering of all sentient beings. It's this deep, driving desire to lead others away from fear and fragility and guide them toward a state of absolute solidity and peace.
Section 4. 10 Concrete Social Roles.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the text demands we bring these lofty ideals down to earth. We do this by stepping into concrete functions within everyday society. Here are 5 powerful examples of how specific human agonies are directly paired with dynamic solutions. Where society experiences sickness and disease, the ethical practitioner steps into the active role of the healer. Where there is fear and danger, they become the protector. In the face of ignorance and darkness, they act as the guide. For poverty and hunger, they become the provider. And for those who are lost and wandering, they serve as the bridge. This is exactly what the Source means by structural empathy. It's not just feeling bad for someone, it's actively becoming the very architecture of relief that society requires at any given moment.
Let's take a step back and think about the incredible narrative arc we've just traveled today. The framework scales so seamlessly, from the cosmic scale of the entire universe right down to the daily, granular actions of just helping a neighbor across the street. These concentric circles connect the innermost workings of your own quiet mind to the vast, complex suffering of the entire world. It shows us that personal restraint and massive social action are actually, really, just 2 sides of the exact same coin.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I'll leave you with a final question to ponder. Which of the 3 concentric circles of responsibility will you actively expand in your own life today? Will you focus on the inner restraint of your own words and thoughts? Will you gather goodness by seeking wisdom and practicing generosity? Or are you ready to step into the outer circle and act as a bridge or a protector for someone in need? The choice, as always, is entirely yours. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep learning.